one of his team has found the 747's flight data recorder.
We were very happy. At last we could take a step forward in our investigation.
This black box records all the aircraft's critical technical data. It could prove the breakthrough they so desperately need. But when they open it, it's a terrible letdown. The tape inside is broken in 4 places. And data from the plane's critical final 2.5 minutes is indecipherable. They send the recorder to specialists in Washington, D.C. and the USA. It's a long shot, but it's their only hope. 11 days after the crash, the investigation team is at rock bottom. But just as investigators are beginning to despair, they hit the jackpot. A diver finds the inner engine, half buried by mud. It's still attached to the mounting that fixed it to the wing. Earhart and the team are excited but cautious. What if this engine proves as unenlightening as the first? It's battered and dented, but they can see no obvious evidence that it was hit by a missile. And when they run the battery of tests for explosives on this engine, once again, they find nothing. Investigators reach a turning point. They rule out a terrorist attack as the cause of the disaster. In fact, they can find nothing wrong with the engine itself. But when they examine its cowling, the outer casing, they quickly spot something odd. A dent, and on it, smears of black paint. Where did it come from? They send the paint for analysis. But they must still find out why the inner engine broke away in the first place. Since the engine was still fixed to its mounting, the separation must have occurred at the point where it was fixed to the wing. The team studies the 747's engine attachment system. 4 fittings hold the engines to the wing. At the heart of each is a 14-centimeter long hollow steel bolt called a fuse pin. The fuse pins are strong enough to take the load of a 5-ton jet engine at full thrust. But in some circumstances, they're actually designed to fail. If an engine suffers a crisis, like a mechanical seizure or a bird strike, it can vibrate violently. If the vibrations get too severe, the engine might tear itself free, destroying the wing with dire consequences. To prevent this, investigators know that all 747s have a damage limitation system. When vibrations reach a critical point, the fuse pins are engineered to snap, allowing the engine to fall away harmlessly. But there's no sign that the inner engine suffered a crisis. So the team must consider a chilling possibility. Did something go terribly wrong with the fuse pin system that led to catastrophe? The team examines the mounting that fixed the inner engine to the wing. They focus on what's left of the 2 central fittings which carry the bulk of the load. The fuse pins they held are both missing. But on one fitting, investigators spot something intriguing. The top of the lug that held the fuse pin has snapped off. Did this happen when the engine hit the lake, or earlier? Metallurgists examine the break and make a dramatic discovery. The stress markings are not typical of a violent impact. They reveal that the lug snapped because it was overloaded. They realize this can only have happened if the fuse pin inside broke at one end. This would transfer significant stresses and twisting forces onto the lug at the other end, making it give way. Fuse pins are designed to break at both ends if the strain on the engine reaches a critical point. Earhart believes that a partial failure can only mean one thing: metal fatigue in the fuse pin. It's a startling new theory. Could metal fatigue in the engine's fuse pins be at the root of the disaster? But Earhart knows the inner engine would only shear off if both central fuse pins failed. To prove their theory, investigators will have to find the missing fuse pin from the other central fitting. The chances of finding such a tiny part in Gooimeer Lake are remote. Earhart's only hope that a significant fragment was still attached to the wing when the jumbo crashed. He deploys more than 20 workers to search the garbage dump where crash debris now lies. No one holds out much hope. The missing fuse pin was only 14 centimeters long and may have shattered on impact.
Het zoeken naar de essentiële onderdelen.
Looking for the essential parts of the wing mounting was like looking for a needle in a haystack.
48 hours into the search, they have still found nothing. Then, on day 3, one of the team spots a piece of metal half hidden by garbage. It's part of the missing central fitting from the inner engine. And against all the odds, there's a chunk of fuse pin still inside. Investigators know it may be their last chance to solve the mystery behind the disaster. They begin scanning the fragment under an electron microscope as soon as it arrives from the rubbish dump. And they find their answer. In the wall of the fuse pin, there's a crack 4 millimeters deep. The patterns around the fault show all the classic signs of metal fatigue. The flaw started along machining grooves in the hollow pin's central bore. It's the breakthrough the team have worked so hard to reach. They already know that metal fatigue made one of the inner engine's 2 critical central fuse pins fail. Now, they have indisputable evidence that the other central fuse pin was also defective. With every flight, the microscopic cracks in the inner engine's fuse pins got bigger and bigger. On October 4th, 1992, they reached a critical point. At 6,500 feet, with the engine at full thrust, the faulty fuse pins fail. But the investigation team still has to explain why the 747's outer engine came off as well. It's almost inconceivable that 2 sets of fuse pins could fail at the same time. Then they receive the test results on paint smears found on the inner engine's cowling. The smears are an exact match for the paint used on the central fan blade spinner of the outer engine. They realize there's only one possible explanation. The inner engine was at full thrust as the plane climbs. So when it shears off, it doesn't fall harmlessly away, it shoots forward. A split second later, it falls back, and by sheer chance, strikes the outer engine, smashing it off the wing. The impact also rips away a 10-meter stretch of the wing's leading edge. Investigators now know that a freak accident caused 2 engines to fall off Flight 1862.
Mayday, mayday.
They alert the manufacturer, Boeing. It immediately instructs airlines operating the 1,000 747s around the world to inspect all fuse pins and replace any that are faulty.